Hey everyone, me Kevin here. All right, look, China news is exciting. We're going to have talks in Switzerland with Besant and Greer going to China to speak with some trade delegation members. Now, this is exciting because it means finally, after over a month of being liberated, we're finally beginning talks with China because no talks have taken place before that. Now, Besant today, while there was some enthusiasm in the stock market leading into this, has started to water down some of this already. Treasury Secretary Besant, minutes ago, says China negotiations will begin on Saturday in Switzerland. That talks are a beginning for talks and not, quote, advanced discussions. And that now we are at a time for China to graduate from developing country status. What? Okay, hold on. So yesterday we're finally having trade talks with China. And then today, but it's just the beginning. And, we have demands. Like, we want China to graduate. And so, in my opinion, that's an implication that they want China to, which in fairness, they should, start considering, let's say, their, carbon emissions. One of the things about China and India is their carbon emissions have been going parabolic while the United States and Europe's have actually been declining. And this is often a criticism people have of China is that while we're trying to have a cleaner environment, even Republicans agree with this, we see China polluting like crazy. And that's why there's been a movement sort of on the right wing to say, hey, like, why are we trying if they're not? If that is going to be part of our trade discussions, it might add some complexity to what are already expected to be very complicated Chinese trade negotiations. Remember, what China is facing is a magnitude more than what Japan is facing. And I want you to remember how these things played out in 2018. I'm going to show you both of these in just a moment. But I want to remind you that this morning we had three calls that we made. One of them was that Open Door was likely to skyrocket this morning, and we sent that out on the Alpha Report for Meet Kevin members, which you could join for less than $2 a day over in the Meet Kevin website over at meetkevin.com. Open Door skyrocketed. We called for a skyrocket in Tempest, which it literally did, and called that Disney was likely to stay flat, and it did. All three of those things were in our Alpha Report this morning. And so if you want to be a part of that, make sure you join the Meet Kevin membership. It's less than $2 a day over at meetkevin.com. You get the exclusive course member live streams and access to that Alpha Report every morning when the market is open. Now, with that said, let's remember Japan for a moment. This is a problem, okay? Japan, 25% tariff rate on steel and aluminum, automobiles and auto parts, 25%, reciprocal tariffs, 10% plus an additional 14%, and the United States only wants to negotiate on the 14%. Well, China has a lot worse of a problem. Not only do they have steel and aluminum, but they also have an additional, fentanyl tariff tax of 25%. They have the additional auto and auto parts tariffs. Then they have reciprocal tariffs of 145%, which even if those get reduced in half, it's still really, really high. It's basically an embargo on China. And if we compare to 2018, we get a little bit of a taste for what it was like back then. Take a look at this. Sorry for all these tabs. This morning, we were also analyzing CrowdStrike and Coinbase's financials to do some fundamental analyses on these. But anyway, take a look at this. What I did is I went from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018, just to see what activity we had in the way of trade discussions in 2018. And what we found is if you just type in China trade talks, it's actually really entertaining what you see. First of all, take a look at this. May 4th, 2018. So what is that? 7 years ago. Senior Chinese and American officials concluded 2 days of negotiations on Friday with no deal and no date set for further talks. Okay, that was in May. Okay, then look at this. October 25th, 2018. The U.S. is stopping trade talks with China. October 25th, Wall Street Journal. U.S. won't resume trade talks without firm proposal. Okay, you've got December 18th. A China analyst says Beijing wants to calm the waters. Okay, here's everybody's favorite communist news network, CNN, sorry. September 13th, 2018. And see, this is where I really confuse people because they're like, wait, Kevin. First I thought you were a Trumper. Now you're starting, then I thought you were a libtard. And now you're sounding like a Trumper again. Which is it? I've just decided I don't want friends. So I just figure if I could piss everyone off, then nobody will like me. Anyway, September 13th, 2018, Hong Kong. China has welcomed an offer from the Trump administration to talk trade, despite the U.S. threat to impose steep new tariffs. Trump tweeted the United States is under no pressure to make a deal with China. They are under pressure to make a deal with us. Dude, this is a replay of 7 freaking years ago. The next round of U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods is likely to make thousands of products ranging from dishwashers to Fitbit and fitness trackers to food seasonings more expensive for American consumers. And they did. We ended up having, transitory price increases where prices went up, and then the inflation rate was transitory because prices went up, but they didn't keep going up. It sort of had like this one-time price increase. Jerome Powell has evidenced this as well. China's economy is slowing down, and new waves of U.S. tariffs threaten to hurt its huge export industry. The trade war has also weighed on Chinese financial markets. So anyway, it's kind of fascinating to go back through this history, and you could go through pages and pages of this trade talk history. But remember, look at this. Trade talks really started at the beginning of 2018. December 30th, 2018, China has said it's willing to work with the U.S. to implement important consensus reached at G20. June 2018, China warns U.S. sanctions will void trade talks. So think about you went through 8 months of negotiation drama, and this drama is just getting started. Now, what ended up bailing out the trade talks? I think that's probably the most critical piece of this video. Look, trade talks to resume. We just heard they were going to pause, right? So anyway, what ended up bailing out markets? Well, if you go to, I don't know, let's just go to here. Let's pull up Webull and let's go to the Qs. There's Disney still trading sideways, just like we said in the Alpha report. And let's go to the Qs. So the Qs are falling right now, probably pre-Fed. In my Alpha report, I mentioned 479.62 is going to be a big bounce level. And there might be a post-Fed buy the dip opportunity at one of these lines. We'll see. But let's go to 2018 for a moment. So 7 years back, we're going to be pre-COVID. Boy, this is like ancient history, I feel like. Here we go. Here's the 2018 trade war. So here's what 2018 looked and felt like. So 2018 starts here at a close of 162. This is really a sales pitch for buy the dip right here. 162, because I mean, look at where the Qs are now, 480, right? It's insane to look at these like ancient history charts. I mean, in fairness, it was pre all the inflation. But so you're at 162 here. You drop all the way down at about 147, and you bob between this range with maybe a high of about 178 and then a low of 137 the entire year. You basically went nowhere all year. So what happened here that got markets really excited again? Jerome Powell U-turned. So in other words, you need the money printer to turn on again. It's not a surprise. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen until unemployment weakens. And if unemployment weakens, we're going to have bigger problems to face. So I think you're probably looking at peak doo-doo this summer. And then after we hit peak doo-doo, my crystal ball says I'm going back to buy the dip Kevin and, bull Kevin. Of course, then it's going to be unpopular to be a bull. And everybody's like, you're just always a perma bull. Do you ever say anything negative about the market? And then I'm going to get the comments like, Kevin, I don't like it when you do the baby voice. I click out of the videos every time you start the baby voice. And then to that I say,